We are watching a tectonic shift in the infrastructure of global medicine. Roche, the world's largest biotech firm, is making a $1.05 billion bet that they can take a neutral AI partner and turn it into a proprietary moat. They're no longer just selling tests or scanners. They're moving to own the fundamental software layer where every medical decision is actually made.
To put it bluntly, Roche didn't just buy a software company. They bought the digital brain that will decide the future of every cancer diagnosis. That cuts right through the standard corporate press releases. Institutions are suddenly realizing that artificial intelligence is no longer some experimental feature, it's critical infrastructure. A deep strategic anxiety is setting in across the sector. Because the reality is, if you don't own the lens through which doctors see the disease, you simply won't be able to sell the cure.
The financial architecture of this deal sends a very direct signal to the market. We're looking at $750 million in upfront cash, with another $300 million tied to specific commercial and regulatory milestones. That kind of premium proves that healthcare AI has officially graduated from the experimental phase and moved into full industrialization. Roche has the financial liquidity, and they're deploying it aggressively to lock in long-term competitive dominance by acquiring ground-truth FDA-cleared diagnostic models.
But to really understand why this capital is being deployed right now, you have to look at an invisible crisis unfolding in the background. There's a severe, worsening shortage of pathologists worldwide. We literally do not have enough trained humans to read the glass slides for an aging population. Manual pathology has become an economic bottleneck for rolling out expensive new cancer drugs. Industrialized AI is no longer a luxury. It's a structural necessity to keep the system solvent and ensure billion-dollar therapies actually reach the right patients.
Tracing the escalation of this deal over just 5 years reveals a lot about the underlying institutional behavior. They started with a standard development partnership back in 2021. As the technology integrated into their platforms and eventually hit FDA clearance, they made their move. Roche clearly recognized a brutal market reality. You can't just rent this technology. Relying on a third-party service for the core infrastructure driving your entire diagnostic division is a massive strategic vulnerability. They had to own it entirely.
Beneath the headlines in that billion-dollar price tag is the actual engine driving this acquisition, PathAI's Pluto Foundation model. This is where the engineering fundamentally changes how a diagnosis works. Pluto uses self-supervised learning on massive data sets. It doesn't need humans to sit there and manually label millions of images. We're essentially handing the ground truth of human biology over to a model that teaches itself, recognizing subtle patterns in cell structures that a trained human doctor literally cannot see.
The economic implication of a self-supervised model is massive, especially in the high-margin biopharma services sector. Because Pluto can rapidly fine-tune for rare diseases without needing exhaustive human annotation, it can identify novel morphological signatures almost overnight. Most importantly, it eliminates human subjectivity in expensive clinical trials. If a pathologist's subjective reading masks a drug's true efficacy, billions of dollars in R&D go up in smoke. Owning this objective, scalable tool gives Roche a virtually insurmountable edge.
This intelligence becomes the ultimate gatekeeper of precision medicine. Take a breast cancer marker like HER2. The difference between a patient being classified as HER2 low versus HER2 negative is notoriously difficult for human eyes to distinguish consistently. Yet, that subtle classification literally determines if a patient gets a life-saving targeted therapy or if they're just sent home. The AI removes that friction entirely. It standardizes the data, making it the definitive authority on who gets treated.
The mechanics of this new competitive mode are ruthless and seamless. Step 1, you scan the physical tissue using Roche's hardware. That high-resolution image flows directly into Step 2, analysis via the PathAI software engine they now own. The AI analyzes the tissue and seamlessly moves to Step 3, recommending Roche's own companion diagnostic tests to pair the patient with a therapy. By internalizing the software layer, Roche embeds its own high-margin drug tests deeply into the daily workflow of the hospital. It's the ultimate lock-in. This level of vertical integration forces an immediate reevaluation across the rest of the market. We now have Roche operating as a vertically integrated giant. You've got data-centric players like Tempest AI and open platforms like Procea. But the real exposure lies with established imaging system players and hardware giants like Leica and Philips. Without their own deeply integrated foundation models, these hardware-heavy competitors face the very real threat of being relegated to simple commodity vendors in a space that now values the software far more than the physical scanner.
The second-order effect here is an accelerated feeding frenzy. Roche has secured the diagnostic operating system.
Now, competitors are staring down a severe build-or-buy panic. Developing a foundation model from scratch requires years of data collection, massive compute power, and incredibly complex FDA navigation. Most companies just don't have that kind of time. Over the next year or two, we're going to see M&A consolidation rapidly accelerate as rivals scramble to acquire the remaining independent AI firms just to stay relevant in this digital pathology arms race.
In the long-term trajectory moves entirely beyond just oncology. Roche is architecting an AI-first ecosystem. By leveraging their expanded partnership with NVIDIA for high-performance computing, they're scaling this across global labs and aiming for nationwide deployment through networks like LabCorp. This infrastructure sets the stage for opportunistic screening. Imagine an AI flagging a hidden metabolic disease during a routine biopsy meant for an entirely unrelated condition. This shifts global medicine from reactive treatment to predictive analysis on an industrialized scale.
But this massive consolidation carries a profound risk. Before the buyout, PathAI was an independent, neutral partner, collaborating widely across competing hardware and lab networks. Roche is now transforming that neutral entity into a proprietary asset, creating a massive platform neutrality dilemma. While Roche insists they'll maintain an open environment, the economic incentives to prioritize their own diagnostics within the software interface are immense. They run the risk of alienating the massive independent lab networks the whole industry relies on.
We are watching the foundation of clinical diagnosis transition away from human consensus and toward proprietary algorithms. The market clearly rewards this integration. It drives efficiency and precision that manual medicine simply cannot match. But it also consolidates an immense amount of power into a closed loop. In a world where the software that analyzes the image, the scanner that captures it, and the drug that treats the disease are all owned by the exact same company, can the diagnostic process ever truly remain neutral?